It was a Tuesday when the phone call arrived, a detail etched in my memory as I pondered whether the leftover chicken was still suitable for Michael's lunch the following day. Michael is my husband, a good man, as steady and predictable as the sunrise. After 30 years together, this constancy brings both comfort and, if I'm being completely honest, occasionally a quiet little sigh in the back of my throat. The display revealed the name Harrison Industries. That was Arthur Harrison, Michael's superior, a man I had encountered only a few times at formal company dinners. Consistently adorned in the finest attire with a subtle smile and eyes that appeared to perceive more than what was being revealed. Michael consistently referred to him with a peculiar sort of reverence. Mr. Harrison, never Arthur, even in our casual conversations. Greetings, this is Eleanor Vance on the line. Good afternoon, Eleanor. Greetings, this is Arthur Harrison speaking. His voice was more polished than I recalled, less corporate, more inviting, reminiscent of aged leather, if that conveys anything. I trust this moment finds you well. Certainly not, Mr. Harrison. Is everything okay? My thoughts instantly drifted to Michael. Did something occur at work? All is well. I appreciate your inquiry. In fact, I reached out to extend a rather unique invitation tailored just for you. I almost let the chicken slip from my grasp. I possess a quaint cabin nestled near the serene shores of Whisperwind Lake. The stillness envelopes everything, creating a serene atmosphere. This location serves as an excellent sanctuary for clearing the mind. This weekend, from Friday to Sunday, I had the idea of heading up, and it struck me that you might appreciate the fresh air. Michael has shared that you have a deep appreciation for nature and that you've been diligently tending to your garden this year. For a brief moment, I found myself rendered speechless. The beauty of Whisperwind Lake was truly enchanting. I had glimpsed the images, yet here I was, solitary and questioning why it was my fate. Your kindness is greatly appreciated, Mr. Harrison. Is Michael invited as well? A brief moment of silence lingered in the air. Michael shared that he has a significant project deadline he's striving to meet throughout the weekend. Mentioned that he would probably be working continuously. I would prefer not to divert his attention. This was an impulsive notion, an opportunity for a brief escape into tranquility. If this piques your interest, feel free to consider it, no pressure whatsoever. My thoughts hurried. Michael had truly become engulfed in his responsibilities, returning home late, weighed down by stress, and utterly exhausted. He would hardly make for pleasant company, even if he were able to attend. For me, a weekend escape from the monotony, from the constant assessment of the chicken's edibility, from the subtle buzz of unvoiced unease, it felt like a dream come to life. Yet, it carried an air of complexity. Alone in the cabin with the boss. Your generosity is truly commendable, Mr. Harrison. I started to select my words with great care. That area truly captivates me. May I take a moment to ponder this and reach out to you shortly? Indeed, Eleanor, take your time. If you happen to misplace my direct line, my assistant has it readily available. I plan to arrive around noon on Friday. As I ended the call, my heart began a peculiar little tap dance. That evening, as we sat down to enjoy reheated lasagna, I shared the news with Michael. He was, to put it mildly, taken aback. Harrison has extended an invitation for you to join him at his cabin. He set his fork aside. Only you. He mentioned that you were occupied with the project. I remarked, observing his expression. He then noted that you had informed him of my fondness for nature. Michael stroked his chin thoughtfully. Indeed, that is the case. I suppose I did bring up your roses from some time ago. Harrison presents a curious puzzle. He tends to remain solitary, particularly beyond the confines of his professional life. Yet, his cabin is meant to be truly extraordinary, exceedingly isolated. He is a commendable individual. Eleanor, somewhat formal yet respectable. If you wish to leave, well, I find myself unable to escape. His voice faded, his mind drifting toward the spreadsheets that awaited him. I sensed it. You wouldn't object. He cast his gaze upon me then. Truly observed. Perhaps he perceived the fatigue I often concealed, or the brief spark of yearning for a change. Absolutely not, dear. I have no objections. Could prove beneficial for you. Breathe in the crisp, invigorating air outside. Simply exercise caution. I suppose it's clear that Harrison, being an older gentleman in his late 60s, always maintained a sense of propriety, never the sort to raise any alarms. And yet, a subtle thrill, a delicate shiver of the unknown coursed through me. The matter at hand transcended Mr. Harrison. Not quite. It was a matter of indulging in an experience solely for my own sake, something that took me by surprise. The following morning, I returned his call and gave my affirmative response. Friday arrived in the blink of an eye. I gathered a modest bag, a collection of books I had long intended to explore, my favorite pair of comfortable jeans, a cozy sweater, and my trusty hiking boots. Michael was already immersed in his work when I departed, a swift kiss exchanged, and a wish for him to enjoy his day. Call me tossed over his shoulder. The journey spanned roughly 3 hours as the urban landscape faded into the distance, giving way to undulating hills that whispered the first signs of autumn. The atmosphere became more invigorating, purer. Mr. Harrison's instructions were exact, guiding me away from the bustling highway and onto a lesser-known county road, eventually directing me onto a gravel path that I might have easily overlooked if I wasn't seeking it out. The concluding passage was a slender earthen path meandering through a thick expanse of pine trees. The sunlight filters softly through the leafy canopy above. I sensed I was already a world apart. The cabin was far from what one might deem small. It stood as a testament to craftsmanship, a 2-story log structure featuring a broad, inviting porch and expansive windows that framed a stunning vista of a pristine lake, cradled by lush, wooded hills. Smoke drifted gently from the stone chimney, curling in soft, languid wisps. It exuded a charm that was both rustic and elegant, embodying a sense of solidity and tranquility. As I brought my car to a stop, Mr. Harrison appeared from the entrance door. He wore a plaid flannel shirt and faded jeans, a striking departure from his typical urban wardrobe. He appeared more youthful, exuding an air of tranquility. He smiled, a sincere and inviting expression that illuminated his eyes. "Welcome, Eleanor. It brings me immense joy that you chose to join us." His voice in this place appeared to merge with the gentle murmur of the wind weaving through the pines. "Did you have a pleasant drive?" "It was delightful, Mr. Harrison," I replied, emerging from the car and stretching my limbs. "An absolutely stunning country. Kindly refer to me as Arthur. We are a distance from the office." He motioned toward the cabin. "Come in. Allow me to take your bag. Let's get you settled." There was a relaxed confidence about him that instantly eased my nerves. The subtle tension I had been holding began to fade, replaced by a gentle curiosity and a feeling of belonging. This weekend promised to be intriguing. The interior of the cabin was even more welcoming than its exterior. Polished wooden floors were softened by vibrant woven rugs. A grande stone fireplace commanded attention on one wall of the living area, flanked by inviting armchairs and a sofa that beckoned for relaxation. Bookshelves, overflowing with volumes, adorned another wall, punctuated by intriguing artifacts, a piece of driftwood, a collection of lake stones, a framed botanical print. The air was rich with the sense of wood smoke, aged pages, and a hint of spice reminiscent of cinnamon. This was a home, not merely a house. It resonated with his essence, revealing the side of Arthur Harrison that remained hidden from the world of Harrison Industries. It was simply wonderful. "Arthur," I said, my sincerity evident. My own home, though cozy, felt overwhelmed by the remnants of everyday existence, a testament to 3 decades of gathering. It was a collection, yes, but one steeped in personal significance. "Thank you, Eleanor. I find it's my sanctuary." He led me to a guest room upstairs, simple yet charming, adorned with a handmade quilt draped over the bed and a window framing a view of the lake. The water shimmered in deep sapphire hues, mirroring the clear sky above. The bathroom is just across the hall. Make yourself comfortable. I was on the verge of putting on some tea. Or would you prefer coffee? Tea sounds lovely, I said. As he moved around the kitchen, a surprisingly modern and well-equipped space within the rustic shell, I found myself relaxing in one of the armchairs by the fireplace. The journey, the newness of it all had tired me more than I realized. The silence here wasn't empty. It was filled with the subtle sounds of nature, the distant call of a loon, the rustle of leaves, the gentle lapping of water against the shore. Arthur returned with a tray holding a teapot, 2 mugs, a small plate of cookies, and a little pitcher of milk graced the table. Earl Grey, I hope that's all right, he offered. Perfect, I replied. He poured the tea with unhurried, graceful movements. We settled into a comfortable silence, sipping our tea while gazing out at the lake. It felt natural, companionable. Michael tells me you're quite the gardener, he remarked eventually, his eyes warm with kindness. I smiled in response. I try. It serves as my refuge for healing. I believe in immersing myself in the earth's embrace. This space is rightfully mine. That feeling. He waved his hand in a sweeping motion, recalling the moments spent crafting parts of this with my own hands, nurturing the woods. It provides a sense of fulfillment that spreadsheets simply cannot replicate. I chuckled, a true and heartfelt laugh. The dialogue must have unfolded effortlessly from that point onward. Our conversation meandered through the world of literature. His collection was nothing short of remarkable, encompassing everything from timeless classics to contemporary thrillers and even a touch of poetry. He inquired about my favorites and paid attention, genuinely absorbing every word I shared about them. He spoke of his late wife Clara in passing, a subtle melancholy weaving through his words. Yet there exists a tender affection. Many years ago, he crafted this cabin alongside her. Their dream intertwined, a vision they both cherished. The revelation deepened the tranquility I experienced in this place. The atmosphere resonated with an essence of affection. He refrained from delving into my relationship with Michael, yet he inquired about my children, who had long since left the nest, and about my own subdued aspirations for the future now that the house felt more spacious. Engaging in such candid conversation with a near stranger felt oddly surreal. And yet, it seemed perfectly instinctive. He possessed a unique ability to pose questions that compelled you to respond with unguarded sincerity. Delve into the depths of your own mind. As the afternoon light began to soften, casting a warm glow over the lake in shades of golden rose, he proposed a stroll before dinner. A path winds its way around the cove. The light at this hour possesses a striking beauty. As we strolled together, the ground beneath us was cushioned by a layer of pine needles. He highlighted various trees, the names of birds whose melodies floated through the atmosphere. He refrained from flaunting his understanding. He expressed his deep affection for this place. As I inhaled, I realized my breaths were deeper than before. Throughout the years, the quiet strain I bore for an eternity. With each step, the tension of a life unexamined seemed to gradually release its hold. He inquired about the aspirations I held in my youth, in the days preceding marriage and the arrival of children. It was a query that had remained unspoken for years, lingering in the shadows of time. After a moment of uncertainty, I discovered myself sharing my desire to be a painter, a yearning I had tucked away so meticulously that it had nearly slipped from memory. He refrained from dispensing empty words or superficial reassurances. He merely nodded, his expression contemplative, as though grasping the burden of those dreams tucked away. The evening meal was unpretentious. Grilled salmon, accompanied by a salad crafted from the vibrant greens nurtured in a small, sheltered patch behind the cabin and served with crusty bread. We dined at a quaint table on the porch, the air turning crisp around us. As dusk descended, the stars began to reveal themselves, shining brilliantly and in abundance, a stark contrast to the glow of city lights. I haven't seen stars like these since my childhood, I murmured, gazing upward in wonder. They're perpetually present, Arthur murmured. We simply overlook the details. And in that instant, as I sat there in the night air enveloped us, the vastness of the universe stretching infinitely above, and in that moment, I sensed a bond with this quiet, contemplative man that transcended anything I had ever known. It lacked any semblance of romance. It transcended mere surface understanding. A convergence of spirits, perhaps in a realm where facades crumbled like the leaves of fall. He recognized me, Eleanor, not merely as Michael's wife or a woman of a certain age. He beheld the girl who had envisioned a world of colors and the woman who still held that flicker of inspiration deep within her. What took me by surprise was that he also made me see her again. The chicken from my homeland, the emails awaiting my attention, the comforting hum of the known. It felt as though it were an eternity distant. This experience resonated with an authenticity unlike any other. The night grew darker, enveloping us in a serene stillness once more. Our meal has come to a close. The plates were cleared away, yet neither of us stirred to step inside. The air had taken on a crispness, prompting me to draw my sweater a touch closer around me. Arthur observed. Feeling a bit cold, he inquired, his voice a deep murmur. I could ignite the flame within. Alternatively, I have a few old, cozy blankets we could utilize out here if you'd like. Prefer the stars a bit longer. The stars, definitely, I said, not wanting the spell of the night to break. He rose and went inside, returning a few moments later with two thick, soft wool blankets. He handed one to me, and it felt wonderfully comforting. He draped the other over his own shoulders. We sat like that, two figures cocooned in warmth, gazing up at the diamond-dusted sky. It's funny. I found myself saying the words emerging almost unbidden. For years, I felt like I was on a train, moving along a set track. Not it was a bad track, one that felt comfortable and familiar, yet I realized I hadn't truly looked out the window in a long time. Arthur paused, allowing my words to linger in the cool air. Then he spoke. Sometimes it takes a different vantage point to remember what the view can be. His words struck a chord deep within me. This weekend, this cabin, this unexpected companionship, it was that different vantage point. He wasn't attempting to change my life or provide solutions to problems I hadn't even fully articulated to myself. He was simply there. And in his company, I felt more like myself than I had in years. He began to speak, not of work or anything trivial, but of the constellations that adorned the night sky. He pointed out Orion, the Pleiades, Cassiopeia, weaving in the ancient tales that accompanied them. His voice was soothing, enchanting, and I listened, completely entranced. It wasn't a lecture, it was a communion, as if he were revealing the universe's secrets that had been entrusted to him alone. I realized that what I was experiencing was a deep sense the desire for visibility and understanding, free from the weight of judgment or assessment, simply embraced. With Michael, whom I cherished, our dialogues had settled into well-trodden paths, their contours softened by the passage of time and our shared experiences. There was solace in that familiarity, yet it also stifled the thrill of exploration. But here with Arthur, every moment felt like a fresh revelation. He remarked, his eyes still fixed on the stars. My wife Clara adored this, the stillness, the celestial beauty. She often said this was where the universe revealed its logic. He hesitated. I haven't shared so much about her before. Anyone in a long time. Thank you for sharing that with me, I said softly. It helps me understand the essence of this place even more. A comfortable silence enveloped us again, punctuated only by the distant hoot of an owl and the crackle of a log settling in the fireplace indoors. Its warmth barely reached us. I felt a surprising wave of emotion swell within me. Not sadness, but a profound gratitude for this moment, for this unexpected connection. It was as if a tightly wound spring inside me had finally begun to unwind. I must have drifted off for a moment, lulled by the stillness, and the quiet murmur of the night, startled slightly when Arthur spoke again, his voice gentle. "Eleanor, perhaps we should head in. It's getting quite late, and the mountain air can be deceptive." I nodded a little sheepishly. "You're right. I think the stars and your stories have quite hypnotized me." We stood, and I folded the blanket, feeling a reluctance to end the evening. Inside, the living room was bathed in the warm glow of the dying fire flickered, casting shadows that danced among the books on the shelves, each one seemingly murmuring secrets in the dim light. "Thank you, Arthur," I said, glancing back at him as I stood at the foot of the stairs. "For everything. Today has been more than I expected." He met my gaze, his eyes holding a deep kindness. "The pleasure has been all mine. Eleanor, I'm glad you're here. Sleep well." Up in my room, under the handmade quilt, the scent of pine and wood smoke faintly perfuming the air, I lay awake for a long time, not with a racing mind, but with a sense of quiet wonder. Nothing scandalous had transpired, nothing that would ignite a sensational headline. Yet, a profound transformation had taken place within me. A door had swung open to a facet of myself I believed had been sealed away forever. The woman who gazed at the stars and dared to dream. The woman who sensed a bond rooted in shared humanity, mutual respect, and the serene delight of being genuinely understood. As I finally surrendered to sleep, I realized this weekend was far from concluded, and that the most meaningful revelations were perhaps still to come. To greet the dawn of a new day. The following morning, I stirred to the melodious chirping of birds and the gentle glow of early light streaming through the window. For a fleeting moment, I felt a sense of confusion. The strange surroundings. The stillness, a stark contrast to the usual urban buzz. Then, clarity washed over me. The cabin, the lake, Arthur. A smile graced my lips. I felt unburdened, rested in a way that transcended mere sleep. I dressed softly and tiptoed downstairs, wishing to let Arthur remain undisturbed if he was still in slumber. Yet, the enticing scent of coffee and something baking bacon perhaps mentioned he was already awake. I discovered him in the kitchen, indeed frying bacon, while a pot of coffee gurgled cheerfully on the counter. He hummed softly to himself, a tune unfamiliar, yet filled with contentment. "Good morning, Eleanor," he greeted, turning with a smile. "Sleep well?" "Like a log," I responded, feeling a warmth envelop me that had little to do with the coffee. "Better than I have in ages. What can I do to help?" "Nothing at all. Just relax. Breakfast is almost ready." "Ready. How do you prefer your eggs?" We enjoyed breakfast on the porch once more. The early morning mist lingered over the lake, rendering it ethereal and enigmatic. The air was cool and invigorating, infused with the aroma of damp earth and pine. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on the mundane, his ongoing struggle with the deer that persistently feasted on his vegetable garden, and my own skirmishes with aphids on my roses. It felt as domestic and cozy as if we had been sharing morning rituals for years. After, as they sat down for breakfast, he inquired, "What would you like to do today, Eleanor?" We could explore the enchanting hiking trails, glide across the lake in a canoe, or, if tranquility is what you seek, the porch paired with a captivating book awaits as a perfect retreat. The notion of gliding over that tranquil, mist-laden lake was profoundly enticing. "The canoe sounds delightful," I remarked. He possessed a timeless cedar strip canoe, its beauty preserved through the years, nestled within a quaint boathouse at the water's edge. We bore it together to the shore. Entering was somewhat unsteady, and I chuckled as I almost sent us both plunging into the frigid water, yet Arthur remained calm and unwavering, steering me with care. As we ventured onto the water, a deep stillness surrounded us. The only sounds that filled the air were the rhythmic dip of our paddles, the soft drip of water cascading from the blades, and the faint, haunting cry of a distant waterfall. The mist dissipated as the sun ascended, and the lake morphed into a flawless mirror, capturing the sky and the lush, tree-clad slopes in its shimmering surface. Our conversation was sparse as we glided through the water. It was unnecessary. Once upon a dialogue unfolding on a profound plane, a mutual admiration for the splendor that envelopes us, a harmonious alignment in the cadence of our movements. I began to observe the tiniest nuances. The sunlight glimmered on a spider web delicately woven between the reeds, while a beaver glided through the water, its V-shaped silhouette cutting through the serene surface in the distance. The delicate nuances of green hues adorning the mountainside. My senses thrummed with vitality, stirred from slumber. After some time, Arthur guided us to a hidden inlet where a delicate waterfall tumbled over moss-covered stones into the tranquil lake. We eased the canoe onto a gravelly stretch of shore and settled in, letting the melodic splashes of the water wash over us. "This is my favorite spot," he murmured softly. "Clara and I would often find ourselves here, sharing delightful picnics." I felt honored that he entrusted me with these cherished memories, these hallowed spaces. It was never a matter of usurping anyone's place or encroaching upon what once was. It was as if I had been granted the privilege to observe the timeless strength of love and connection, expanding the capacity of my own heart. He then turned to me, his gaze intense and searching. Contemplative expression. "You spoke of your desire to paint yesterday. Eleanor, do you ever reflect on that? Or perhaps, do you ever find yourself sketching solely for your own enjoyment?" A warm flush began to rise along my neck. It has been an eternity, spanning decades. I am at a complete loss for how to begin. All of my supplies have either dried up or vanished during moves from years past. He inclined his head with deliberation. Comprehensible, yet does that yearning ever reemerge? As I gazed upon the waterfall, I marveled at the dance of light upon the cascading water, the intricate textures of moss and stone captivating my senses. At times, I found myself acknowledging my voice. It comes out as a mere whisper when I encounter something truly beautiful like this. There exists a deep yearning, an impulse to seize the moment, transcending mere photography, reaching for something greater. He didn't push, but a short while later, as we glided slowly back toward the heart of the lake, he remarked, "I have some old sketching pads and charcoals in the cabin. Nothing extravagant, just some things my daughter used when she was a teenager. If you feel inspired, you're more than welcome to use them." His offer was laid back, tender, yet it settled in my heart with unexpected weight. Mass. It was as if the universe had granted me a permission slip, a gentle nudge urging me to delve into that dormant aspect of my being. The remainder of the day unfolded in a harmonious blend of serene companionship and subtle exploration. In the afternoon, we embarked on a brief hike that led us to a lookout point, where we were greeted by a breathtaking panoramic view of the expansive lake and the majestic mountains that embraced it. He filled a thermos with tea and gathered a few cookies left over from the previous day. We perched upon a sun-kissed rock as he recounted the rich history of the region, weaving tales of the loggers who once roamed these lands, and the miners who initially arrived in this place, along with the endeavors to maintain its pristine allure. What resonated with me profoundly was his profound reverence for all things nature, history, the individuals surrounding him, and even the subtle dreams of a woman he scarcely knew. There existed neither a plan nor a presumption. The atmosphere was one of shared respect. That evening, following yet another simple yet delightful dinner, we found ourselves by the fireplace. The night had turned cooler, and the warmth of the fire enveloped us in a comforting embrace. I found myself reflecting on Michael, not burdened by guilt or a sense of an examination, yet infused with a fresh perspective. Our existence had settled into a series of predictable patterns. Indeed, there existed a profound and enduring connection, steeped in love and rich with history. Perhaps the absence I felt was not a flaw in him or in us, but rather a reflection of my own detachment from my inner landscape. I allowed my own hues to diminish, and in that act, perhaps the world surrounding me appeared less vivid as well. Arthur sat immersed in his book, a pair of glasses resting on his nose, radiating a sense of pure contentment. The only sounds that filled the air were the gentle crackling of the fire and the soft rustle of his turning pages. I did not take it upon myself to pick up a book. Instead, I merely observed the flames as they whirled and flickered in the night. My mind is unexpectedly serene, yet buzzing with fresh ideas and novel viewpoints. The revelation that struck me was not merely the invitation or the ambience surrounding it. A space had been conjured into existence. Room to inhale, room to ponder, room to just exist. Within that expanse, a subtle awakening was taking place. An exquisite blossoming of identity. What transpired was not a dramatic event, but rather a subtle and deep internal blossoming. The moment marked a profound rediscovery of Eleanor, and I was starting to realize was more remarkable than any external spectacle could ever hope to be. The following morning, our final morning emerged, radiant and luminous. The lake lay still, a flawless reflection of the heavens above. A hint of sorrow lingered in the atmosphere around me, the awareness that this chapter was drawing to a close. Arthur sat on the porch, cradling a mug of coffee, his gaze drifting over the tranquil landscape before him. "Morning," I said, as I stepped into his presence. He prepared another mug for me. "Greetings, Eleanor, and a wonderful morning to you. Our final one present for the time being." He smiled, yet a comparable depth lingered in his gaze. For a time, silence enveloped us as we savored our coffee, allowing the tranquility of the morning to wash over us. The silence that enveloped us felt as soothing as the dialogues we had shared. At last, I remarked, "Arthur, I find myself at a loss for words to express my gratitude for this weekend. It has been nothing short of transformative. It felt like a grand term, yet it was the only one that truly resonated." He faced me, his eyes steady and warm. "The pleasure was entirely mine, Eleanor. It has been quite a while, as I have enjoyed such captivating companionship. Your presence infused this old cabin with a warmth it has long been without." His words resonated within me profoundly. "I came across the sketching pads you referred to." I spoke with a hint of shyness. "Last night, after you had settled into your slumber, I took a moment to capture the essence of the fireplace in a swift sketch." Though it lacked brilliance, a sincere smile illuminated his features. "Yet, you accomplished it. Isn't that what truly counts? The beginning." Indeed, I concurred, a subtle excitement coursing through me. The sensation was pleasurable, remarkably impressive. He gave a slight nod. "The flicker of imagination, regardless of its size, requires attention. Please ensure it remains lit, Eleanor." His words resonated not as a command, but as a gentle and profound encouragement. After a modest breakfast of toast and fruit, we gathered our belongings and prepared to leave. I assisted him in organizing the cabin, a warm sense of domesticity enveloping us as we navigated the well-known surroundings. It was an odd sensation to depart, akin to emerging from a wondrous dream. Yet, aware that the dream had etched an unforgettable impression on my conscious existence. As my small bag found its place back in the car and the moment to depart arrived, there was a pause of an uncomfortable tension, the sort that arises when something unique and undefined is drawing to a close. How does one bid farewell to an experience that has subtly transformed the very fabric of their inner world? Arthur accompanied me to my car. "Travel with care, Eleanor," he remarked. "The city will feel loud after this." "I'm certain of it." I hesitated for a moment, then locked eyes with him. "Once more, I extend my gratitude, Arthur, for your kindness, for your presence, for it all." "Thank you, Eleanor," he responded, his gaze radiating a warmth that I knew would linger in my memory. To serve as a reminder, an elderly gentleman, where meaningful dialogue and serene companionship intertwine, evokes a profound sense of connection. He paused for the briefest moment, then reached out his hand. I accepted it, and his handshake was both firm and warm, a gesture embodying genuine respect and camaraderie. It was an exquisite balance, devoid of excess or deficiency, and it embodied perfection. The journey home felt distinct from the one that had brought me there. The scenery remained unchanged, yet I perceived it with a fresh perspective. The hues appeared more vivid, the atmosphere more invigorating. A wave of tranquility washed over me, accompanied by a subtle joy that I had not fully recognized as absent from my life until that moment. Upon my return, the house exuded a sense of familiarity, yet it also carried an undercurrent of strangeness. Michael lounged on the sofa, captivated by the football game playing out before him, while a disarray of work papers lay scattered across the coffee table. "Ah, you're back," he remarked, his gaze shifting from the screen to meet mine. And once more, we return. "What was your experience like? Did you enjoy your time with Harrison?" "It was truly marvelous." "Michael," I uttered, and the sound of my voice felt foreign even to my own ears. More distinct. Truly serene. He prefers to be called Arthur at the cabin. Conveys his best wishes. "Ah, Arthur." "What?" He flashed a grin, becoming casual with the big superior. "Excellent. I'm pleased to hear you enjoyed yourself." Once more, he returned to the game. Once, I would have found that subtle absence of profound exploration unsettling, but now it no longer affects me. The realization dawned upon me that the experience at the cabin belonged solely to me. It required no understanding or validation from anyone, not even from Michael. It had unfolded deep within me. In the weeks that followed, a palpable change had taken place. Once more, I began to observe the delicate wonders around me. The afternoon sun poured through the kitchen window, casting an intricate pattern reminiscent of a leaf. I purchased a modest sketchbook accompanied by a collection of charcoal pencils. My journey into drawing began as a personal endeavor. A bowl of fruit rests on the table, my cat sprawls in slumber, and the view from my bedroom window unfolds before me. They were not works of art. Quite the opposite. Yet, the very act of embracing that neglected facet of my being instilled a serene contentment, a feeling of purpose that resonated throughout various aspects of my existence. My patience with Michael deepened, and our conversations flourished as I became more attuned to my own thoughts and feelings. I propose we embark on a weekend getaway, merely the two of us, to a quaint bed and breakfast by the coast. He had spoken of his desire to visit long ago. His expression shifted from surprise to delight. I never revealed to Michael the complete truth of what transpired at the cabin. Not due to the need for concealment, but rather because it was profoundly personal, deeply internal. It revolved around the hushed dialogues, the mutual stillness, the rekindling of celestial wonders, and the soft nudge from an unforeseen companion to reclaim a forgotten fragment of my being. The events that unfolded at Mr. Harrison's cabin were far from scandalous. A clandestine liaison or a shocking disclosure that could completely transform my existence. It was an experience that transcended the ordinary, revealing layers of meaning that were both delicate and deeply significant. It served as a poignant reminder that bonds can emerge from the most unforeseen circumstances, that shared respect can create a pathway between individuals of stark contrast, and that personal evolution need not always stem from upheaval. At times, a serene weekend, a compassionate spirit, and the bravery to gaze upon the stars can remind you of your true self and the potential that still lies ahead. And that, I am convinced, is a narrative deserving of attention.